All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are you guys doing? Welcome to session number 4 of HIIT SEO. I hope you guys are doing great. More importantly, I hope you guys had a great time doing the assignment of session number 3. Please let me know in the chat box how your experience was when you were doing session number 3. One beautiful thing that came out was a lot of people did submit the assignment way before the deadline, but having said that, good 40 to 50% of the people still submitted sometime in the evening. But hey, it's still an improvement. So no complaints over there. So I hope you guys had a lot of fun doing the assignment of session number 3. Let's see what people have to say. Um, it was amazing as always. Superb experience. It was awesome, excellent, superb. My experience was during research. Again, topic and keyword sage. A lot of fun. Amazing. Learned so much. I am doing absolutely great. Thanks for asking, Harshita. Assignment was enriching as always. Every night, same dream of SEO, getting better with SEO. Enjoy the process. Deadline management. That's a very good way to put it, Rashid. Deadline management it is. Speaking of deadline management, so one of the other things that I would like to mention while we were assessing the assignments for assignment number 3, we noticed that quite a lot of people, there were two main problems, right? Assignment number 2, not assignment number 3. When we were doing the assessment for assignment number 2, we noticed that a lot of people, we spotted two very disturbing pattern, so to speak. Pattern number one, a lot of people had not actually written the 1,000 words, right? And I think I had mentioned it enough times that even if it is 999 words, your assignment will be rejected. But having said that, a lot of people did not even cross the 500 word mark. So I hope that a lot of you people have actually if your assignment is rejected, then you know what the reason behind that is. So make sure that whatever guidelines have been provided for you as part of the assignment, you follow it to the dot so that your assignment doesn't get rejected for very simple reasons like this. Pattern number 2 was that we found, like, this is not a lot. We still found that a couple of them, there was a lot of plagiarism in the content that you had created. Now, there are two different dimensions to why this is wrong. Dimension number one is that obviously it's unethical for you guys to go out there and copy someone else's hard work and put it on your website as your own content. That is not a good thing to do. So do not copy paste content from other places. The least you could do is go out there, consume other people's content, then reiterate and articulate the same stuff in your own words, and then like put it out there and make sure it actually hits 1,000 words. Even from an SEO perspective, which is dimension number 2, plagiarism is a terrible thing. Now imagine from a user's perspective who's going on to Google and typing in something in Google, and he or she realizes that all the 10 results actually have the same content. Do you as a user, would you as a user like something like that? Let me know in the chat box that if you would prefer something like that. Absolutely not, right? So why would you go out there and plagiarize content? Which is exactly why Google also does not like plagiarized or duplicate content, wherein you're copying, pasting content from other websites and putting it on your own website. So Google is pretty good at understanding whether or not that content is plagiarized or copy pasted. So don't try to fool Google. They're really, really good at it. So the best you can do is actually go out there and rewrite, reiterate, re-articulate it in your own words, which is what I keep telling people in terms of content creation, right? So there is art and science to creating content. So you know the science of it, you've been given the framework. So what you need to do is bring in your own perspective, bring in your own opinion, bring in your own view to that particular topic and bring out your own flavor to it by doing so. Therefore, it becomes like you're merging the art and science of creating content beautifully and creating something that you can call your own. That's exactly how you need to be approaching it. Does that make sense? Just type in MS in the chat box if that makes sense. So number one, please make sure you follow the guidelines that has been set out to the dot. Number two, make sure you do not copy paste content from other websites. As long as you follow these things, your assignment will not be rejected. Okay, so I'm sure everyone here would agree that the guidelines for each of these assignments is pretty clear, pretty straightforward. We also make sure that we mention all of these things in the Q&A session. It's pretty clear, right? Just type in CC for crystal clear for all the things that has been mentioned in terms of assignments, so that nobody is getting confused here. I just want to make sure that nobody is confused in terms of what you need to be doing in terms of the assignment itself. Thank you very much. So make sure that you follow all the guidelines. It's pretty simple to follow. As long as you're following all of these guidelines, you're like good to go. The other thing that I would like to mention, most of the people who have chosen EMI options have paid, but there are a few of them who have not paid yet. I'll be sending the link again to people who have not paid. Please make sure you make the EMI payment. If you do not make the EMI payment, you will not be allowed to attend the sessions, and also your assignments will be automatically rejected and no cashbacks will be processed. So make sure you pay your EMIs on time, and you not like attract any kind of late payment fees as such. So most of the people have already done it. Just a few handful of them have not paid. I just want to make sure that I like put it out here. And if you have received the link, please check your email for the EMI link and go through it and make the payment so that we are all on the same page. Great. Having said that, it's 8:12 p.m. on this beautiful Tuesday evening. Who's ready for session number 4? Let me know in the chat box. And let's get started with session number 4. What is it going to be about? It is going to be about technical SEO. Now, technical SEO is quite deep, so which is why there are 2 parts to it. So today's session will be part 1 and next session will be part 2. Having said that, just because it's got the word technical in it, please do not get intimidated by it. Okay, so whatever I'll be sharing with you, I'll like made sure I've broken it down to the most simple terms and also used enough analogies for you to go out there and understand the technical aspects of things, right? The second thing is that a lot of people have this misconception that just because it's got the word technical SEO or technical in it, for some reason you need to know some sort of coding. You don't need to know how to code. Believe me when I say that. I keep repeating this again and again. I myself don't know how to code. Having survived, not just survived and thrived in the SEO industry for the past 12 years, I'm pretty sure I can tell you with a great deal of certainty that you don't need to know coding. If you know coding, there's no harm in it. It definitely adds value to it, but you don't know how to do it. Even if you're not technically sound, don't worry about it at all. You just have to press a few buttons like always and make sure you put things out there in the right way. As long as you do it, you'll be good to go. And most importantly, a lot of things you'll be learning today is conceptual stuff to help you understand why you're doing whatever you're doing. So that, and also I'll be telling you why you shouldn't be doing certain things as well. And the reason why I do this is because when you go out there and do things on your own, you have your own projects, or if you have clients and things like that, you need to arrive or make a rational, logical decision. And for you to make a rational, logical decision, you need to know every aspect of technical SEO so that you can give the right advice to people, or if not for other people, you need to make the right decisions for yourself, which is exactly why you'll be knowing certain aspects of technical SEO, even if you might not be implementing them. Okay, so that's why we'll be learning a lot of very, very interesting stuff in this particular session, and even more so in the next session. So I hope you guys are seatbelts are on, because this is going to be a wild ride. Now let's try to understand what exactly is technical SEO. Now, technical SEO is where you make your website more crawlable and thereby more indexable, and improve its speed and credibility to rank better and efficiently. Now, if you guys can help me remember how search engines work, there are 3 stages in which search engines work. I'm not talking about the ranking factors. I'm talking about the 3 stages in which your search engines work. Can anyone help me understand? RAU is the ranking signals, Ashutosh. I'm talking about, yes, crawling, indexing, and then ranking, right? So you need to ensure. So would you guys agree that if your website is not crawlable, if the Google search engine spiders are not able to crawl your website properly, they'll not be able to index it properly, and therefore they'll not be able to rank it properly? Do you guys agree with that? Just type in A in the chat box if you guys agree with that, right? So which is what we are trying to do in this particular session, to make sure, to ensure and try and make your website more crawlable, and therefore more indexable, and therefore increase its speed and credibility. Improving speed, you'll be learning it in the next session, not in this session, but that's what technical SEO is all about. Now, what are the different elements of technical SEO, or rather, what are the different elements of technical SEO you'll be learning in today's session? The first session, the first element that you'll be learning is something called a site architecture. How are you supposed to be structuring your website so that it becomes easier, not just for the crawlers, but also for your users to navigate your website easily. Then you'll also understand how Google crawls your website. How is it crawling? Is it able to crawl it properly or not able to crawl it properly? And then we'll be using something called as robots.txt, a very simple file. Again, this unnecessarily sounds intimidating for such a simple text file. But anyway, what you'll be doing with the robots.txt file is you'll be able to communicate with the crawlers in the language that they understand to control the way in which you can actually crawl your website. Then you'll also be learning about the Google Search Console Inspect, which you guys might have done already. And you'll be learning about sitemaps, internal linking, and mobile SEO. So these are all the different elements that you'll be learning as part of today's session. Who's excited to learn about all of these things? Type in excited in the chat box if you are excited to learn about all of these things. Fantastic. First things first, site architecture. What's the big deal about it? Now, imagine you are a search engine spider and you want to crawl, index, and rank all the websites on the internet. Wouldn't you agree that it would help a great deal if a website had a predictable way to navigate a website? Type in A in the chat box if you guys agree with that, right? So if you were a search engine spider and you want to crawl, index, and rank, even from a user's perspective, wouldn't you agree that it would help if a website had a predictable way to navigate a website? Now, that's exactly what you're trying to do in this particular session with site architecture. A well-structured website not only helps spiders, but it also helps users as well. Now, to help you understand this better, I'm going to use the help of the king of dry fruits, cashews, and help you with an analogy. Now, there are two images here, figure 1 and figure 2. Now, if I had to tell you, hey, please go ahead and like grab some cashews from figure 1 and figure number 2, which one of these would be much more easier for you to do? Right? 2, obviously. Guys are like pretty fast at it, right? It's much more easier for you to go out there and find cashews and like grab these cashews in figure number 2 compared to figure number 1. Having said that, it's not that you cannot actually go out there and get your cashews. You definitely can, but it's going to take a lot longer for you to get cashews from this and like, segregate it first and then like collect it and like give it to me, right? But figure number 2, so much more easier because it's already been segregated. It's already organized. All you need to do is like grab it and just like hand it over to me, right? So that's exactly what you're trying to do in terms of content, if you're of your content as well on your website. You are segregating the content and organizing the content in such a way, or structuring your website in such a way that it becomes easier for these search engine spiders as well as your users to find and access your content in a predictable manner. This is exactly what you're trying to do, okay? Now, if you had to draw the same analogy and translate it into website architecture, this is how it would look like, right? The left-hand picture that you see is a good example of a bad site architecture. As you can see here, this is the home page. If I had to like map out your website architecture, this is how your website would look like with bad site architecture. This is your home page. These are some of your category pages, some random page here, blah, 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 things like this. Now, it's so difficult for you to like, this looks more like figure number 1. Would you guys agree with that? Just type in A in the chat box if you agree with that, right? This looks more like figure number 1, right? It's like very disorganized. It's all over the place. It's very, very difficult for you to go out there and find certain content. Now, there are 2 very major problems with this kind of bad site architecture. Problem number 1 is that you might end up having what is called as orphan pages, abandoned pages. Now, what are these orphan pages? Look at this particular page here. It has not been linked from anywhere on the website. It is just like existing on the website, somewhere on the website, but it is not by being linked either from the home page or from any other pages on the website, right? So these lines here actually denote that it has been linked. Okay, so just like assume that, right? Now, because it has not been linked from anywhere on the website, it becomes very difficult for both spiders as well as the users to actually find that particular page, right? Now, the second bigger problem is in terms of your user experience and in terms of navigation. Let's take an example of this particular page here. If you had to go to this particular page from your home page, right? Look at how many clicks you had to actually click. You go on a home page, click on your category page here. Let's assume that this is a category page, then one more subcategory page, then one more page here, then one more page here, and then come here. That's close to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 clicks to actually help you reach that particular destination page. So taking 6 clicks to reach a destination or any other page on your website becomes very, very, very tedious for both your users as well as crawlers, right? So this becomes very, very difficult, which is why having a bad site architecture can hurt your SEO as well as your user experience and user signals as well. Now, what is a good example of a good site architecture? This is a great example of a good site architecture. You have your home page, you have your category pages, under them you have these pages, right? So not only are there no orphan pages at all, every single page has been linked either from the home page or the category pages, right? There are no orphan pages at all. Plus, very importantly, you can reach any of these pages, which are the deepest pages in your website, with just 3 clicks, right? From your home page, category page, then your post or your any kind of page that you have, right? So if you had to like imagine Amazon's website, it's a great way to like actually imagine from Amazon's website, right? You have a home page, say for example, you are looking for TVs, right? You go into TVs, and then like you have go for LED TVs, and then you have all the product pages like this, right? Just 3 clicks and you're there. Most of you have shopped on Amazon, right? Would you guys agree? Or any kind of e-commerce websites? Just let me know in the chat box. Give me a quick yes or no in the chat box. And most of you have shopped on Amazon, right? It's incredibly easy for you to shop on Amazon and find certain products. Would you guys agree with that? It's incredibly easy to like actually find products. It's like the way it has been designed, the way it has been structured is so intuitive that you don't necessarily, you just have to follow the instruction on the page and you end up where you want to be. So that's exactly what you're trying to do with your site architecture as well. Now, how do you actually do this? I'll be showing you how to do all of these things, but first, conceptually, you need to understand all of those things. It's actually not as straightforward as you just saw to structure your website. The reason being, there are 2 different schools of thought for this. There is an old school way of structuring your website, which is a simple siloed hierarchical structure. Now, this is your silos. So silos are segregation, right? So you've segregated your content, you put it, and like they're not interacting with each other. There is a clear set hierarchy for all of those things, right? So that is the old school way of structuring your website, which is a simple siloed hierarchical structure. Now, along came HubSpot and said that, hey, that might not actually be the best way to go about doing it, which is why they came up with something called as the topic cluster model, where you create content around very broad topics, then create content based on specific keywords related to that topic that all link to each other. A very good way to help you understand is using this particular diagram here, right? This is the siloed hierarchy, and this is the topic cluster model right here, right? So as you can see here, now this page, say for example, if you were on this page, it becomes extremely difficult for you to move to this page, say for example, because there is no connection between this page and this page. You necessarily might have to like go through the menu and all of those things and actually go through, do all the 3 more clicks all over again. Now, with this topic cluster model, what HubSpot said is that create one single massive page, which they call as a pillar content, right? That will become your pillar. And from that pillar, you have like links to a lot of other pages which are related to this particular topic, but which goes into much more detail. So that's exactly what a topic cluster is all about. You have pillar content and you're linking out to much smaller topics, much more specific topics. You're creating content around this and creating pages like this, which makes it much more easier for you to create a thematic unit for a particular thing. And then like you basically link it out to each other. Now, there is no right or wrong way of doing this. Both of them are actually correct, and it comes down to a matter of preference. Now, if you were to follow my advice, what I would recommend you to do is that you go ahead and do it both, right? You try to use the siloed hierarchy plus the topic cluster model itself. And let me show you a damn cool tool which will actually help you understand this particular thing and what is the difference between these two different schools of thought. I'll show you how the siloed hierarchy looks like if you map the entire website, and how the topic cluster model will look like if you like go ahead and do it. Then I'll show you how I actually have gone ahead and used both of these things to make sure that I'm not missing out on either of the advantage of both of these things. Give me a minute. Let me just quickly open up. Right, check this out. This tool is called the Visual Site Mapper. And what I've done here is I have basically put in backlinko.com, who uses, his name is Brian Dean, and he is considered to be one of the best guys in terms of SEO. What he has done here is basically he has used a siloed hierarchy, right? He has like siloed, which is like independent of each other. So as you can clearly see here, say for example, these red dots here, these red dots are not at all connected to, say for example, these pink dots. They're like siloed and like away from each other, right? They're not connected to each other. And as you can see here, they're all like segregated nicely into different things. And then you have like main websites, like, I mean, the main pages on your website, which is basically linking out to all of these things, right? This is how it looks like. Pretty cool, right? This tool looks very cool, helps you understand how visually you can actually represent how a particular website has been mapped. Now, let's take a look at how the HubSpot's topic cluster model actually looks like when you map it exactly like this, right? This is how HubSpot has done it using the topic cluster model. But now if you can see here, it is not exactly segregated, but there are some orange spots here, which are connected to all the way here. And like, look at the way it has been connected, right? So if you hover over each of these spots, you'll be able to see that everything is connected to each other, right? Everything is connected to each other. Therefore, what is happening is it becomes incredibly easy, both for your crawlers and your website, your users also, to go out there and actually find all of these pages as well, right? How cool is this tool? Just type in cool tool in the chat box if you think that this is a really cool tool to help you understand the two different, structuring, how to actually go out there and structure it. Right now, let me show you how I have married both of these two concepts and actually use these things. And I'll then tell you how to actually go about doing it for your own website as well. A great example is, so what you do is you first I've created a siloed hierarchy where I've segregated these different kinds of content. So if you actually go to my website and like hover over this blog, I've segregated most of my content into SEO and content, and there are like other pages also, but most of my content is segregated like this. And now if I hover over SEO, you'll see there are different blog posts like this. Now, if I click on this, now this is the pillar content, which is a good solid 8,000 word blog post. What you can see, how many people have actually read this blog post? You might have like actually come across this particular blog post as well, right? So what I'm doing here is that I've married both of these concepts and saying that first I'm going to segregate the content, but also I'm going to create this pillar content, which is going to be an in-depth overview of this particular topic. And then I'm going to link out to specific posts which go in depth in terms of that particular topic itself. So if I scroll down, blah, 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 keyword research. All right, so we are under keyword research here. So right, we have under keyword research here, and then I'm basically linking out to my other post, which is basically the lazy man's guide to advanced keyword research. So what is happening now, if you saw it from the topic cluster model, is that I have a pillar page and I'm linking out to a smaller page, but this smaller page is actually going in depth on that particular topic. Now, this allows you to not just rank for one particular keyword, but also rank for many, many keywords out there. And since I've married both the concepts, which is basically your siloed hierarchy, which is basically you're creating silos and segregating your content, plus the new topic cluster model, it makes it so much more easier both for your users as well as your search engine crawlers to find your content and go out there and help you understand and rank for like many, many keywords out there. Does this make sense? Just type it MS in the chat box if it does. Okay, so now what you need to do is that for you to actually achieve this, I'll show you how to do it. We'll be actually creating a menu like this first of all, and then we'll be actually creating categories like this. And under each of these category, you will be like putting in the different posts. Okay, so how do you go about doing it? So I am in my dummy website so that you can understand how to do this, right? So what you need to do first of all is go out there and go to appearance, and sorry, you have to first create categories and then put those categories in those menus. So how do you create these categories is basically you hover over posts and you'll see categories here, right? You click on categories. Right? So once you click on categories, you can actually go there and two things. One is that you can add new categories here. You can, whatever name you want to give, and you can give the URL for that particular category. And then if you have a parent category, you can do it. You're not able to hear my voice? Am I audible to everyone? Just let me know real quick. Okay, then there might be a problem with your speakers, whoever told. Okay, fantastic. So you basically create a category first. As you can see here, I've created different categories, which is comparisons, knowledge, and reviews. So now, once I've created these categories, how do I actually put in all the posts that I've created under this particular categories? So let's try to understand that now. So what I'll do is I'll go back to the posts that I've created, right? And let's say LG dishwasher review. Okay, I'm going to go here. So this is how your content would look like. So everybody knows how it looks like. You have your Rank My Pro here, blah, 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 things like that, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this gear icon here, right? And once I click on the gear icon, you'll find this option of categories here. So once you click on this category, you'll see that you can actually choose under which category you want to segregate this piece of content under, right? You have reviews, you have comparison, and your knowledge, right? Since it's review, I'm going to click on reviews. In fact, you can categorize the same content under different categories also. You can put in comparisons also, and like, you can choose all of them if you want to. But for now, let's try to keep it simple. And since this is going to be a review post, I'm going to use this under reviews. And once you do that, you just click on update, right? Now, if I go back to categories, what is going to happen is that all the posts that are basically categorized under reviews, a new page is going to be created called reviews. Let me just open it. Can you see it here? dishwasher.com/category/reviews. And all the posts which I have tagged as reviews is going to come on this particular page, right? So what I've done here is I've segregated and arranged this particular content everywhere I need. And as you can see here, if I hover over here, you will be able to see this particular thing also. Now, how do you go about doing it? Now, is that clear? Does that make sense? How to actually add categories and categorize your posts under these categories? Just let me know real quick. Just type in CC in the chat box if it makes sense. Okay, fantastic. Good. Right? So it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. All you need to do is hover over posts, click on categories, and basically you can create categories here. And then once you do that, why is my audio low for some people today? Okay, hold. Is it much better now? Okay, great. Fantastic. Much better. Okay, great. I'll just put it like this only then. Great. So what is happening now is that we have created different categories, and you know how to actually, under these posts, all you need to do is basically, open this particular post and click on the gear icon here. And under categories, you can just like check mark whatever category you want to categorize that post under. Once you do that, you click on update. Now, how do you actually put it on a menu that, how do you actually make sure you put it on the menu? Now, the reason why you want to put it on the menu is because your menu is going to appear on every single page, right? Which means that these particular pages will be linked. These are basically links. These particular pages will be linked from every single page. therefore making it easier for your crawlers and your users to navigate much more easily. Now, does that make sense? Type in MS in the chat box if that makes sense, right? And I'll show you how to go about doing that. Now, to add a menu, what you need to do is hover over appearance, click on menus here, right? You'll see that these are the different things that you have. Now, the first thing that you need to do is click on categories, right? So you'll see add menu items. You click on categories and you check all the things that you want to add, right? So you can, after you do that, you click on add to menu. Since it's already here, I'm not going to change anything here, okay? So once you add to menu, it will automatically get added here, right? So now once you've done that, then you can go out there and click on the post that you want to put it under these categories in the menu. So let's say, for example, okay, so this particular review, say LG dishwasher review. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on add to menu. So as you can see here, it has been added to the menu. But what I want to do is actually place it under reviews so that when I hover over this particular thing here, it shows up like this and not somewhere here, right? So how do you do that? You basically take and drag it and like you place it with an indent here. Can you see the difference between this and this, right? There is an indent here, right? Now I can actually move it like this a little bit. So, or say here, right? Since there is no indent, it means that if there is no indent, it will show up here. But if there is an indent, it means that it has been categorized or placed under that particular link, right? So that's how you basically get something like this, right? So are we all clear on that? Type in CC in the chat box if you guys are clear on that. You subcategorize it. Yeah, you're basically creating subcategories here. In this case, it's not a subcategory, but your actual post. So which means that wherever you are on the particular website, you can reach any particular post with just 3 clicks or probably lesser also. Say, for example, I had to go to this particular thing. All I had to do is hover over this particular menu here, click on IFB dishwasher, and then boom. I'm already on this page, right? Which means that these are all links here. As you can see, these are all links here, clickable links, which means that it can be found from wherever you're on the website. It is easier for people to actually go out there and find your content. Does that make sense? Right? So I'm going to repeat again. So once are we all clear up until the point how to create categories and how to categorize posts under certain categories? Are we clear till that? Give me a quick yes or no in the chat box. Okay, great. Now, once you have done that, you need to make sure that your categories and the posts that you have created are part of your menu. The reason why you need to do that is because your menu is going to appear on all the pages of your website. And since it is going to appear on all the pages of your website, it becomes easier for people and the crawlers to actually find your content extremely easily. Okay, now how do you do that? For you to do that, first what you need to do is first add the categories to the menu. And to do that, click on categories, check all the categories that you have created and click on add to menu, which will then get added like this, right? And once you do that, you click on posts and click on all the posts that you want to categorize under each of this category and then like use an intent. You just place it under that particular category and just move it a little bit so that there is an intent so that it can actually becomes like a sub menu, right? So it becomes like a sub menu and therefore now you have linked all of the pages or rather posts in your case from anywhere on your website and it becomes super easy for your, crawlers and users to actually find it. In this case, what I've done is I've married both of this concept wherein I have created categories and I've categorized the same thing and then basically link to all the other pages or posts on my website using internal links, right? Using internal links. Now, how do you actually go and create internal links? It's very, very easy to do that. All you need to do is click on edit posts. And once you are in the editor, all you need to do is say, for example, you want to use this particular word as you want to link this particular word here. You just select it like this and you'll get this beautiful box that you guys are used to and click on this add link. or in your case, you can press Control K. If you use a Mac, just do Command K as well. Once you do that, you can put in your internal links of your other pages. And therefore, what you're now doing is basically now first you've categorized it and put it on the menus, and then you're interlinking all of these posts and pages as well. So again, say for example, the crawler on this particular the crawler is on this particular post, it is very easy for it to go out there and actually find other links also. So it does not necessarily have to rely on the menu itself, and it's the same for your users as well. So what you're trying to do, you're trying to make it extremely easy for the crawlers and your users, let's say crawlers in this case, the crawlers to actually crawl all of the posts on your website or all of the pages on your website. Now, does that make sense? How I've actually married both of these concepts and basically use the menus and categories to segregate and use the siloed structure, and how I used interlinking to create topic clusters. Make sense? Now, does it make sense? So initially, when I told you the concept, it might have been a little overwhelming, but now does it make sense? You type in MS in the chat box if it does. Awesome. Not that technical, right? Like I told you guys, you just need to click a bunch of buttons. That's it. Right? So now let's move on to the next thing or the next concept. But before you do that, I want you guys to like close your eyes, or you don't have to close your eyes, but I want you to think, what if you had to crawl the entire internet, right? What if you had to crawl the entire internet and make a list of all the websites and the respective pages in a day? How would you go about doing it? I'll give you two options, and I want you guys to think about it and think about it carefully for about 10 seconds and give me which option you would choose if you had to crawl the entire internet. Imagine you are the crawler, okay? What if you had to crawl the entire internet and make a list of all the websites and their respective pages in a day? You just have one day to do it. How would you go about doing it? Option A, you make sure you crawl every single page of a website before moving on to the next one, but you may not be able to crawl every website on the internet. Option B, you allocate a fixed time frame to crawl a website before you move on to the next website, therefore making it possible for you to crawl all websites, but may not be able to crawl each website completely. Which one of these options would you guys choose? Option B, fantastic. You guys would make amazing Google crawlers. Okay, so just read it again, go through it again, and like I'll just read it again for people who might not have got it. Option A, if you had to actually go and crawl the entire internet in one single day. Option A is you make sure you crawl every single page of a website before moving on to the next one, but you may not be able to crawl every website on the internet. Option B is you allocate a fixed time frame. You say that, you know what, I'm going to spend only a minute on each website, and then whatever I can crawl in that particular minute, I'll crawl and then move on to the next website, right? So therefore, making it possible for you to crawl all websites, but may not be able to crawl each website completely, right? So obviously, like many people have chosen, option B sounds to be a lot more reasonable, logical, rational thing to do. Now, that's exactly how your Google crawlers also work. And this concept, this gives rise to a very important concept called as crawl budget, right? Now, what is crawl budget? The amount of time and resources that Google devotes to crawling a site is commonly called as the site crawl budget. So every website on the internet has been allocated a budget saying that, hey, you know what, this is the amount of time and resources I, as a crawler, I'm going to spend to make sure I crawl this website before moving on to the next website. Now, how is the crawl budget determined? It is basically determined by your website's popularity, your server's capabilities, the freshness of your content, and the number of pages on your website. Now, the obvious question that people might have, I know I've seen this a lot of times, that how do I know what my crawl budget is? There is absolutely no way for you to know what your crawl budget is, but you definitely can go out there and number one, see how Google is crawling your website. Number two, optimize this entire crawling. Okay. Now, what do? So first, let's try to understand how Google crawls your website, right? So now the best way to understand how Google is crawling your website, Everybody clear about the crawl budget concept? It's basically option B that you've chosen, right? So Google says that, hey, I'm going to allocate only a limited time and resources to crawl your particular website, and I'm going to move on to the next one. So would you guys agree that, which means that you have to make sure that you are making Google's life easier to crawl your website. That is what you're trying to do with technical SEO, right? So now for that to happen, first what you need to do is understand how Google is crawling your website and check what is called as coverage report in your search console, right? You need to first check your coverage report in the search console to see what are all the pages that Google is crawling, and make sure all the important pages are crawled and all the unimportant pages are not being crawled, right? So assuming that option D that you have chosen, you need to make sure, would you guys agree that you need to make sure that all the important pages are crawled first and all the unimportant pages are not crawled at all? Because since you have a limited time which has been allocated to your website to be crawled, you have to make sure that you're putting your most important pages out there in the front and making sure that, you know what, forget about all of these unimportant pages. Don't even crawl it. Don't even need to index it and go out there and do it. You'll understand what I mean by this when I show you the search, the coverage report of one of my clients' website. Okay. That's exactly what you're trying to do. But before you do that, you first need to know how Google is actually crawling your website. And to do that, we'll be jumping into Search Console and understanding what way Google is actually going out there and crawling your website. So let me jump into the Search Console. As you guys can see here, I am under coverage here. Okay. Under index, if you click on coverage, this is, sorry, this is how it looks like. Okay, so this is one of my clients' website. I'm showing you this because it gives a much clearer idea of how this whole thing looks like, right? So what you can see here, under coverage, you'll have 4 different categories here. One is all the pages which have thrown an error to Google's crawlers. There might be certain pages which are valid but has certain warnings. In this case, both of these categories have 0 issues, so absolutely no issues. Then you have valid and excluded. Now let's click on valid and see all the pages that have already been crawled. If I click on this submitted and indexed, you'll see here that these are all the pages that have been actually crawled and indexed by Google itself, right? So as you can see here, all the blog pages are definitely crawled. I definitely want it to be crawled, but there might be certain pages which I don't want to be actually crawled at all. Say, for example, this tag pages, right? This is not actually a blog post, but this is more like a category page. So it is creating like another category. WordPress actually goes out there and creates these tag pages, which are basically like your category pages itself. Since you're already creating category pages, you don't want another category page to exist on your website. Would you guys agree with that? Right? Just let me know in the chat box if you guys agree with that. Just type in A in the chat box. Since you guys are already going out there and segregating content under specific categories, you don't want WordPress to be doing it out there on its own. And more importantly, you don't want Google to actually crawl these pages and go there and index, because then what happens? You are compromising on your crawl budget, right? Say, for example, if I had to go out there and tell Google that, Google, please forget about this. Any page that has this particular word in it, don't even go out there and crawl it. I don't want it to be crawled. I don't want it to be indexed. I don't want it to be ranked at all in the first place. Okay, so please make sure you only crawl all the important pages on my website. You only index all the important pages on my website and only rank all the important pages of my website. Now, fair disclaimer, fair heads up, most of the time, Google does this very, very efficiently on its own, especially from a small website's perspective. Rashi, I'll tell you exactly how to talk to Google just after this particular thing. Okay, you'll know how you can talk to Google crawlers using what is called as robots.txt. Now, coming back to the heads up that I was giving, for a small website like yours, which has like less than like 20, 30 pages, this shouldn't be a big issue. But if you have a much bigger website, this definitely becomes an issue. Now, again, like I said, the reason why I'm showing you guys how to do it is because you need to know what this is, how it works. If in case your website becomes much bigger in the future, or if you're working with a much bigger website of your client or anything like that, these are the few things that you need to make sure has been optimized before you go out there and try to actually rank for those particular websites. right? So let's say, for example, I don't want this particular pages to be actually ranked or indexed at all. Now, how do I go about telling Google that, hey, please don't do this. Please don't crawl this particular website. Please don't crawl this particular page. Don't even index it. Don't even bother ranking it, because I know your time is very valuable. You have very limited resources and you have other websites to crawl. You're being very nice and generous to Google's crawlers. Okay. So now how do you go about doing that? To do that, you use a very simple, very humble, very effective text file called as the robots.txt. Now, what is a robots.txt? Robots.txt, it's a text file which tells a search engine where it can and can't go on your website. Okay, so every time a Google crawler visits your website or any website, the first place it will go is your robots.txt, because your robots.txt is how you talk to Google's crawlers. That's where you're saying that, hey, you can go here, you can't go here. So, this is how you actually communicate with Google's crawlers. And usually most websites, robots.txt, any websites, robots.txt can be found on xyz.com/robots.txt. Now, the way you communicate with that, and the reason why you do that, is you can use it to exclude sensitive areas of your website and obviously optimize your crawl budget, right? Now, are we all clear up until this point? What is crawl budget? How to actually go and find how Google is actually crawling your website, and then what a robots.txt file is, right? So I can CC in the chat box if you're on the same page, or SP in the chat box if you're on the same page about crawl budget and robots.txt and all of these kind of things, right? Fantastic, beautiful. Now, this, what you see on the right-hand side, is actually how a robots.txt file looks like, okay? Now, there are four main elements of a robots.txt. One is the user agent. Now, exactly like Google's crawlers, every search engine and many tools out there have their own crawlers, right? So Googlebot is Google's own crawlers, Bing bot is there. Then you have Ahrefs bot. You've been using Ahrefs, right? How does it actually go and find all of this content, right? The way it does it, they have created their own crawler. They have created their own bot, which is called as Ahrefs bot. SEMrush has also created something like that, right? So that the different user agents, and you can actually specify for this particular user agent what you need to do and what you can't do. And then you can say allow, disallow. Very simple. If you say disallow, I don't want these pages to be actually, say for example, this one, disallow /tag/, which means that any page which has the URL /tag in it, you're not allowed to go there, right? That's what you're trying to do. Now, regex is wildcard. Now, what is wildcard? You're basically any search engine crawler out there. It can be Googlebot, Bing bot, SEMrush bot, Ahrefs bot, any bot out there which is going to come to your website has to follow these rules. But if you want to give specific instructions to specific user agents, you can do that also like this, right? Now, user agent, you put like wildcard here, which means that these rules have to be followed by all crawlers, all search engine bots. And you're saying that you're disallowed from going to this page, all of these kind of pages, right? Tag pages, comments, feed, trackback, and all of these kind of pages are automatically created by WordPress. So what you're trying to do here is actually trying to optimize your crawl budget by disallowing Google's crawlers to go to this page in the first place, so that it doesn't bother crawling it, doesn't bother indexing it, and doesn't bother ranking it in the first place. How amazing is that? Just let me know in the chat box if you think that this is a great way to actually talk to the search engine crawlers. Everybody on the same page? Does it make sense? Awesome. Right? So you are talking to a search engine crawler. It might be Google, it can be any search engine crawler out there. You are talking to them. You're communicating to them, or more importantly, you are giving them rules as to what they can and can't do, right? Right. So use regex is basically a wildcard. This asterisk symbol you see here is wildcard. So which basically means that it doesn't matter which search engine robot or crawler you are, regardless of whatever search engine crawler you are, you have to follow all of these things. But if you want to specifically give instructions to any specific bot, you can do that also like this. You can specify the user agent, and then you can say you're allowed to go here, you're disallowed to go here, right? Does that make sense? Awesome. Now, how to actually tweak your robots.txt, and I'll show you how my robots.txt looks like. All you need to do is just copy it and put it into your rank math. So this used to be actually much more difficult to do it before rank math pro came in, and since rank math pro is here, it's much more easier for you to go out there and edit your robots.txt in a very simple manner. You can go out there and do it, and for you to actually make sure your robots.txt is a much more refined version, all you need to do is copy my robots.txt, which looks something like this, right? User agent, this is the wildcard. And the first thing I've disallowed is your WP admin. Now, the reason why we have disallowed WP admin, can anyone tell me? Does anyone want to take a guess? Privacy, yes, it's sensitive areas, security, right? All of those things. And most importantly, what will your users do or crawlers do by accessing your WP admin, which is basically how you log into your WordPress dashboard, right? So no need of admin secure area to access, which is why you're saying that forget about WP admin, don't even go there, okay? Then you have all of these other things that you have disallowed also, right? These are all the pages that WordPress automatically creates, and which is quite frankly unnecessary in a lot of things, right? So it is a good hygienic practice to have to make sure you have a robots.txt that looks like this. Now, how do you actually go out there and edit your robots.txt, right? So I'll show you how to do that. All you need to do is go to rank math, right? Under rank math, you need to go into general settings. Right under general settings, you'll have edit robots.txt. Now, just a heads up, for most people, you should be able to do this. Now, what you need to do is just copy this, right? Copy it, come here, and basically select all and paste it. In most cases, you should be able to do that. In this case, my contents a lot because of a security feature of the hosting, and that's about it, but nothing else. So in most cases, you should be able to do it. So all you need to do is copy paste here and click on save changes. That's exactly how you edit your robots.txt file. Does that make sense? Type in MS in the chat box if that makes sense. Awesome. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, right? Considering how many people are grateful for having Rank Math Pro. Just type in RMP in the chat box if you're grateful for having Rank Math Pro and making sure that all of these things are actually available for you, right? So much more easier for you to do, because otherwise what you had to do back in the days, you actually had to like create a text file and upload it to your server and put it in the right folder and all of those kind of things, right? So now you just have to like access this particular thing here, click on edit robots.txt, slap it here, and then you're like good to go, right? So that's how you do, how you basically tell. These are all the pages that you forget about it, right? For the most part, would you guys agree that for the most part, what we have done with the robots.txt is controlled or told Google's crawlers or communicated to them that, hey, don't go to these pages. That's exactly what we have done, right? Would you guys agree with that? Step in the chat box if you guys agree with that. What we have done with robots.txt is basically we have told them, don't go there. Now, how do you make sure Google indexes your most important pages? How do you make sure that you want to tell Google that please go here? How do you go about doing that? So the first way and the obvious way of doing it is your Google Search Console inspect tool. You have that inspect bar on top which basically used to index your websites. Everybody remembers it? Give me a quick yes or no in the chat box. Everybody remembers using the inspect tool to actually get people Google to like inspect it and like URL inspection, right? So you're putting in a URL there and basically getting Google to actually index your website. That's one way to do it. But assume that just assume that you have a very big website, right? you have a very big website and you're constantly adding more and more pages every single day. Obviously, you can't keep going to Search Console and doing the same thing over and over again. Now, how do you overcome that? You overcome that by using two very simple things. One is called as an XML sitemap, and the other is interlinking, right? Interlinking, I already showed you guys how to do that. Now let's try to understand what on earth an XML sitemap is all about, right? An XML sitemap is essentially a table of contents for your website. Remember how many people have read any kind of books, or you might have at least read your textbook in school. The first page usually used to have a table of contents of your book, which said that, hey, you'll find this particular page on this page number, things like that, right? So that's exactly what you're trying to do with an XML sitemap. You are communicating or telling to your crawlers that, hey, this is where this particular page is. This is where you can find it. So after robots.txt, the second place that your crawler goes to is your XML sitemap to find all of these important pages, right? So an XML sitemap is usually how most of your pages are discovered. Like I said, once robots.txt is done, it has all the instructions. It knows where it can and it can't go. The next thing it will do is it goes to your XML sitemap. So usually most of your pages are discovered, and you need to make sure it's updated, and having a functional updated sitemap is crucial. Again, thanks to Rank Math Pro, it creates a sitemap automatically, right? So all you need to do is make sure you add your sitemap to the Search Console. Now let me show you where you can find your sitemap and how it looks like in Rank Math Pro, and then I'll show you how you can actually add it to your Search Console so that you can actually go out there and submit your sitemap and tell that, hey, this is where you can find all my important pages. And in case you already updated your robots.txt, so that every time a crawler comes there, you have all the instructions laid out over there. Now let's try to find out where this sitemap actually is. So under Rank Math again, you'll see sitemap settings here. Right? So your sitemap index can be found here. So this is your sitemap URL. So as you can see here, sitemap underscore index.xml. So, Rank Math Pro is actually going out there and creating this sitemap automatically. So if you click here, so you'll be able to find all of the important posts right here, right? So you find all of these important posts right here. So now it becomes so much more easier for Google to actually go out there and find your important pages. Does that make sense now? Pretty simple, right? Since you've actually put in your posts, Rank Math actually goes out there and creates this sitemap, and the way you can access your sitemap is basically clicking on Rank Math, come to site settings, and then clicking on dishwasher, clicking on the sitemap link, and here you'll be able to find it, right? You have two different sitemaps for WordPress usually, one for posts and one for pages. Usually most of your content that you're posting under posts, you'll be able to find it under posts, right? Now, how do you actually use, now you want to go out there and submit this sitemap to Google so that you actually go out there and tell Google that, hey, this is my sitemap. Again, Google knows where to find it, but it's good practice to actually explicitly tell Google where to find it so that nobody gets confused. Okay, so the way you do that is, again, in Search Console, you'll have this option called as site maps. Now, you need to do is you need to put in your sitemap URL here. So don't put in the entire URL. All you need to do is just put in this part of the URL, and you click on submit. And once, I'm not going to go ahead and submit it because it's already been submitted here. And as you can see, success, the covered URLs is 206 URLs. It was submitted 11th May 2021. Last read 8th September 2021. So basically, last read means that this is the last time this website had been crawled, right? So as you can see here, these are all the different sitemaps that it's already here, right? Does that make sense now? Type in MS in the chat box if it makes sense. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple, and very easy to go out there and do it. Let's do a quick recap. before we move on to another very important concept. Does this feel heavy? Does it feel overwhelming? It might for some people, but don't worry about it. But it's pretty simple and easy to do, right? It's simple and easy, but conceptually it might be a little heavy, but I hope I've done my very best to like simplify it and make you guys understand what we are trying to do here, right? Because it's very important that uh, you know, you know what you're doing. That's good. Don't make any notes, just pay attention here, right? As long as you pay attention here, you can always watch the recording and make your notes if you want to. So if you understand it from a conceptual level and understand why you're doing, so like I keep saying that knowing what to do is knowledge, knowing what not to do is wisdom. Eventually you'll get that wisdom. The more you do it, the more you do it, you learn from your experience and then you'll get it. Anamika, like always, I will do the Q&A session later on. Please hold on and be patient. Right. So let's do a quick recap of all of the questions, all of the things that we learned. So first things we learned was site architecture, which is basically how to structure your website in a way which makes it very easy for Google, your crawlers, and your users to actually understand how your website is. Now, there are two different schools of thought for this, or two different approaches. One is your siloed hierarchy, right? Basically, you're categorizing and segregating your content so that it becomes super easy for your crawlers and your users to go out there and actually find your content. And the second approach is basically your topic cluster model. Basically, you're creating a pillar content and then you're linking out to very specific pages as well. Now, we told you, or I told you, that how it is a good idea to actually marry both of these concepts because it provides a lot of different pros and some cons in some cases, but it's definitely a very good idea to actually marry both of these concepts so that you're not missing out on anything for that matter. The reason why you're doing this is because you are making sure that your crawl budget has been optimized. And how do you go out there and optimize your crawl budget? The best way to do that is first understand how Google is crawling in the first place. And the way you do that is by logging into your search console, going through your coverage report and seeing what are all the pages that Google is actually crawling on a website, and make a list of all the pages that you don't want to be crawled, and go to your robots.txt and update your robots.txt to make sure that all the unimportant pages are not crawled and indexed and ranked therefore, and to make sure that all the important pages are definitely indexed and crawled and ranked and everything in between, you either use your Google Search Console Inspect. More importantly, you use or update your search console with your XML sitemap, and you interlink all of your posts as much as possible, right? And the way you do use your XML sitemaps is basically, GraphMath Pro has already created a sitemap for you. All you need to do is find it, update it in your search console. Now, speaking of robots.txt, let me guys show you something quirky and cool. This is Nike.com's robots.txt. Just check out what they have written here. I thought it's a pretty cool thing to show you guys from an SEO. So their robots.txt says just call it exactly like how just do it is their thing. They actually had, oh yeah, then they have this also, their swoosh, the big swoosh also in their robots.txt. So as you can clearly see, Nike doesn't leave any opportunity to itself. Wherever they have an opportunity to go out there and brand themselves, they have gone ahead and done it. It's pretty cool if you ask me, right? So I thought that I'll just show it to you guys. Pretty cool thing, right? Awesome. Now, what do we have? What do you think is the next concept that you'll be learning? Mobile SEO. Yes, Justin, we're not ready for the assignment yet. Just one more concept, and after that, you'll be learning mobile SEO, right? So, what on earth is mobile SEO? Now, mobile SEO is the practice of optimizing your website for users on smartphones, on tablets. I'm sure that I don't have to tell you guys that most of us actually access websites and the internet in general from your mobile phone. Do you guys agree with that? Right? Most of us actually access the internet and many websites out there using your mobile phones, which means that you have to make sure that you are actually optimizing your website to all the mobile phone users, right? If your website is not optimized for mobile phone users, you are missing out on at least 50 to 60% of your users, and like you are actually losing out on so much opportunity for yourself out there, right? And you wouldn't want that to happen, would you? Right? Absolutely not. So what do you mean, and how do you actually go out there and do it, right? And a bigger reason why you need to actually go out there and make sure your website has been optimized for mobile phones is something called as Google's mobile first indexing. Now, what on earth is Google's mobile first indexing? Now, Google's mobile first index ranks the search results based only on the mobile version of the page. Yes, this occurs even if you're searching from a desktop. This means your rankings are based on how good the mobile version of your site is. Now, this was not the case before, but around 2017, 2018, Google moved to Google's mobile first indexing. In fact, if you actually go to your search console, you should be able to see, uh, let's see this particular, if you see, you will be able to see that Google is actually crawled as Googlebot smartphone. So this is the crawler that Google uses by default to crawl the entire internet. So what Google is trying to do is Google is trying to crawl the entire internet as a mobile phone to actually go out there and basically look at the mobile version of the website of your website. And depending on how good the mobile version of your website is, it then goes ahead and ranks your website, whether if considering it is actually good, then it decides whether or not to rank your website, right? Now, before, your previous search results model was something like this. So there are two different indexes, right? One for desktop and one for mobile phone. So what for the mobile phone index was completely different than the desktop. So what Google used to do was that, hey, it is to say that I'm going to like serve only the mobile version of the website for mobile phone users, only the desktop version for desktop users. Now, it still does the same thing, but very important change is that it first goes ahead and looks for the mobile version of the website, and then depending on where you're looking for, then serves the right version or mobile version or the desktop version, right? Because Google's crawler is behaving like a smartphone or crawling the entire internet as a smartphone, and therefore indexing it as a smartphone also, you have to make sure that your website is actually optimized for mobile phone users as well. Now, how to actually make your mobile or your website mobile friendly? Now, there are three different ways of doing this. Now, the first way, which was the old way of doing it, was to actually serve a separate mobile version. You have a separate website in itself, which looks something like this, m.timesofindia.com. M stands for mobile, obviously, right? So you have a separate mobile version of it. And many people might have observed this in Times of India. How many people have actually observed this? Times of India actually have like an m.timesofindia.com version. So if you share things, if you're accessing their website using your mobile phone, they will actually like redirect you to m.timesofindia.com. Facebook also does something like that sometimes, right? Not anymore, if I'm not wrong, right? But Times of India still does that. Now, this is a big problem, because what used to happen was, since these are, you had an m.timesofindia.com and then a timesofindia.com, which is basically the desktop version, but both of these websites have the same content, right? So since they have the same content, a lot of duplicate content issues were arising, a lot of different issues were arising because of this particular thing. Now, even Google and the website owners were very like confused and didn't know how to go about doing this particular thing. So which is why the new age of websites is something called as a responsive website. Now, what is a responsive website? A responsive website is something that responds to the size of the screen that your user is actually accessing it from. So if it is a desktop, it'll actually show you a desktop version. If it is a mobile phone, it is then showing you a mobile version. If it is a tablet, it'll show you a tablet version. So there are like no different versions of the website, but it basically adapts to the device the user is basically using. That is what a responsive website is actually all about. Now, since all of you have used Astra Pro as your theme, so Astra Pro is actually inherently responsive in nature. And I'll show you how it actually looks like so that you guys will have a clearer idea of what I'm talking about, right? So let's see this particular post, right? So I'll show you the responsiveness live in action. So as you can see, this is the desktop version. This is how the desktop version looks like. You have this sidebar here, and you have the content here, and all of those things here, right? So if I click on inspect and click on this button here, this is the desktop version. But if I click on this button, it'll actually show me the mobile version. Did you guys see how it responded to the change in mobile and desktop? So it automatically changed the way it has, the layout has been changed automatically, right? You can in fact change the phone that you want to see. If you want to look it for Moto G4, you see how it like automatically change the size of the screen. Let's say iPad Pro, right? This is how it looks on iPad Pro. Did you see how it responded to this change in screen size, right? It automatically showed all of these things. But before that, it was, if I choose iPhone X, it will go back to this particular thing. So this is what responsiveness is all about. Even the icons of the WordPress dashboard is responding to this size of your screen. Even the WordPress dashboard is responsive, right? So this is what people started doing. They're like, hey, you know what? Instead of making different versions of a website, let's have a responsive website. So depending on what the person is, or which device that person is looking for, it automatically changes the resolution or the size of your screen, therefore not confusing both the users as well as your crawlers, and you don't have duplicate issue and a lot of different problems that were like arising because of that. Now, then along came this project called as the Google AMP project, right? So which is what you can also do, which is called, you can also go out there and implement AMP. Now, what is AMP? The AMP project, which originally stood for Accelerated Mobile Pages, but it has gone beyond just creating accelerated mobile pages and it's become like a huge beast in itself, is an open source framework developed with a mission to provide a user-first format for web content, right? So the reason why Google came about creating this AMP project, of course, it had a lot of vested interest in it. But more importantly, the reason why it came was because the median load time for an AMP page is 0.7 seconds, while according to Google, the median load time for a regular mobile page is 15 seconds. So the median load time for a mobile site on a mobile phone is 15 seconds. So Google was like, you know what, this is hurting the experience of users accessing websites from their mobile phone. So how do we go about actually making sure the experience is enhanced? So what they did was they came up with something called the AMP project, which basically said that, you know what we are going to do with the AMP project? We are going to serve stripped down versions of the web pages designed to load quickly on the mobile devices. Instead of serving the entire website to the users, what we'll do is we'll strip away all the unnecessary things that is being served for desktop users, but only keep the most essential content of the website and serve that to the user, so that it becomes so much more faster to load and so much easier for people to access it also. Now, the way they do it is by a lot of design restrictions. That is how they're actually doing it. For example, you can't have any kind of pop-ups on your AMP pages, or your CSS file. Basically, your CSS basically dictates how your website looks like. It cannot be more than 50 KB, which is nothing compared to like most CSS files, or your JavaScript, which basically takes care of your the functionality of your website in terms of the front end. It cannot be more than 150 KB, right? Don't worry about too many things about this. Just try and understand why this was done, right? They said that, you know what, we are going to add a lot of different design restrictions and therefore make the stripped down version available to the users, so that the whole loading experience, it becomes so much more faster and easier for people to load the content, and therefore the experience of this particular thing is like enhanced dramatically. And also what it did was something called as pre-rendering. Now what Google started doing was it creates a cache of your page. You'll understand what caching is in the next session. So right now, just absorb it for now. And what caching is basically, it takes your website, all the things that is happening, translates it into an HTML page and keeps it ready. So when you click on that particular AMP link on the search result, it serves it from Google's own server. It automatically loads, like it almost instantly loads it on your website. So there is nothing happening between the click and this thing. Some people might have actually observed this in a lot of places. When you click it, it automatically just like comes as if like less than like a second. It's really, really fast, right? But there are a few things that is like very, very important for you guys to know, like why and when to implement app, and more importantly, when not to implement app. So like I said, the medium load time for an AMP page is 0.7 seconds, while according to Google, the medium load time for a regular mobile page is 15 seconds. If for any reason you're not able to reduce your load time on mobile phones under 2 to 3 seconds, that is when you should be going for the AMP version. But lucky for you guys, you have signed up for probably the best SEO course in this country, where you'll actually be learning how to optimize your website and make it load faster in the next session. You don't necessarily have to do it. And I'll tell you why you don't necessarily have to do it later on, but hold on to it. In the next session, you'll learn how to optimize your website and make it load blazing fast. Okay. Now, that is one reason. If you're not able to reduce your load time, if then you have to go out there and do implement AMP. The other main reason, the only reason, logical reason that you might want to be using is if you're running a news website. But if you're running a news website, the only way to get into the special news panel is by implementing apps. So many people might have actually seen this in some Google, when you do Google search. I'm sorry that I used this particular example, but anyways, right? You might have seen this panel here, top stories, and you're able to see all of these panels of different news websites. And on this news website, you see this small logo here. Have you guys noticed this anytime? Right? So if you are a news website, the only way to get into this top stories panel is if you have implemented AMP, right? Only and only if you have implemented AMP, you can actually get into this, right? So which is why almost all news websites have AMP implemented on their particular website. But since there is heavy design restrictions, and to a large extent, your functionality of your website is also restricted, a lot of people don't actually opt for AMP websites. And there are more reasons why you would not want to implement AMP on your website. The most important reason from an SEO perspective, and we'll learn more about this in session number 6 and 7, is backlinking, right? So you need to have links to your website. If you have an AMP enabled website, you will lose out on links, because when you earn a link, you might end up linking it to the Google page. What on earth does this even mean? Remember, I said that Google goes out there and creates a cache of your page and serves it from its own server. So because it is serving it from its own server, your page, any website, will actually look like this. The link of your page will look like this: google.co.in/amp/s/www.hindustantimes.com/ whatever the URL is. So whenever you earn a link or linking to your website, you're actually linking it to Google and not to your website. So you're losing out on a lot of links, and you'll understand the importance of this in session number 6 and 7. But for now, I think to a fair part, you understand why this is not a good thing to have, right? The second reason is it can mess up analytics data a lot, right? It can definitely mess up analytics data a lot. So people were definitely not happy with this whole thing. And you'll have to compromise on functionality and branding. Although AMP has come a long way in terms of providing better functionality, but when AMP first came out, you didn't even have like social sharing icons. You were not able to add social sharing icons, no pop-ups, no branding, no nothing on a website. It looks like just like a text file that you're reading on some website, right? So obviously people were not happy with it. And more so because what Google was actually trying to do with the AMP project was, it was actually trying to control the internet. They did not want people to go out of the Google ecosystem. They said that, hey, you know what, everybody be in my own ecosystem. Therefore they had much better control. So they faced a lot of criticism for this particular reason, which is why apart from news websites, you do not see a lot of websites actually implementing AMP on their website for this reason alone. Does that make sense now? right? Having said that, these are all important information for you to know. You need to know why you should be doing it. And if at some point of time there might be a use case where it actually makes sense for you to implement AMP, you need to know how to go out there and implement AMP. Would you guys agree with that? It's a good to know thing, right? So this is part of mobile SEO and all of those kind of things. But don't worry, I'll be showing you how to do, optimize it for speed in the next session. But in this session, I'll quickly show you guys how to implement AMP on your website. It's very simple to do. So Google has the AMP project rather has actually gone out there and created a plugin which you just need to install. And once you do that, you have like an AMP enabled website. And Rank Math Pro actually makes sure the everything, the compatibility of everything is like not broken. Again, thanks to Rank Math Pro. So the compatibility is not broken, but you still have an option of having an AMP version of your website. Now let's try to understand how to implement AMP on your website, right? So now everybody remembers how to install a plugin, right? Click on add new, look for AMP, and you'll get this particular thing, which is basically the from the AMP project itself, this plugin has been developed. So you don't have to like worry about it at all. So once you do that, you click on install now. And wait for it to get installed. Oh, there you go. And click on activate. Right. Once you do that, you'll be able to see this, open the onboarding wizard, and this is how it looks like. So this is the official AMP plugin for WordPress. So you'll be able to see all of these things. Click on next, and it'll say, are you technical developer or technical savvy, non-technical savvy, or wanting a simple setup? No price for guessing which option you'll be choosing. Obviously, the second one, click on that, click on next, and you have template modes. You have three options here. Standard. In standard mode, your site will be completely AMP, both for desktop and mobile itself. It'll be completely AMP and you'll use a single theme. You'll have no other option at all, which means that you'll be having a lot of design restrictions. Then you have transitional. In transitional mode, you will have a non-AMP and an AMP version itself, and both will use the same theme, right? And then you have reader. In reader mode, your site will have a non-AMP and AMP version, and each version will use its own theme. For your case, what you need to use is transitional. So click on next, and it will show that, okay, Astra is the theme that you'll be using, and then you'll have this option called as redirect mobile visitors to AMP. Now, anytime somebody visits from a mobile phone, it will automatically get redirected. In this case, I'll disable it. But if you want to actually redirect mobile visitors to the AMP version of it, then you can actually go out there and like enable it. But for now, I'm going to disable it. Click on next and it. That's how you like enable or implement AMP on your website. Right now, if I click on this, you'll see that the URL has been appended with something called as AMP equals 1, which means that this particular website or page is the AMP version of this post, right? So you might notice that it actually doesn't look a lot different than the actual version of it itself. Now that's the beauty of Astra Pro, right? The Astra Pro theme itself is so lightweight and so well designed and well developed that when you implement AMP also, there is not a lot of difference in the AMP version and the non-AMP version of it. So which means that you don't necessarily have to put on AMP version just to make sure your website is loading faster. You just have to use the right themes, which is why I'm giving you guys away all of these tools and themes and plugins and all of those things. So whatever you're doing, you're getting the best in class and getting the best experience so far, right? So if you want to, you can enable and disable AMP on each of these posts individually and specifically. And the way to do that is basically by doing this. You just need to click on enable AMP. If you click on this, you can disable AMP also. Then you'll have this button here. If you click on this, you'll be able to see the AMP version of this particular website, right? Again, like I said, the difference is not a lot, but there is definitely a difference as well, right? So some difference will be there. It makes it much faster. But like I said, since all of you guys are actually using uh, Astra Pro, you don't necessarily have to go out there and enable this, but it's very important for you to know how to install and implement app if the need arises and if there is a use case for it. And like I said, the main use cases are if you're not able to reduce your load time under 3 to 4 seconds by using everything that I'll be teaching you in the next session. If you're not able to do that, and if you're willing to compromise on the functionality of your website, but say that, hey, you know what, as long as my users are able to consume my content, I'm completely okay with it. So I'm going to go ahead and use AMP because I'm not able to reduce my load time, then it's fine. Or if you have a news website, then most definitely you should be going ahead and actually using AMP for your website. Are we clear on mobile SEO and the AMP project? Type in CC in the chat box if you guys are clear about the AMP project and mobile SEO. Awesome. With that, we have come to the end of session number 4 of HIIT SEO. How was this session? Let me know in the chat box. How was the session? Interesting, intriguing, amazing, awesome. Okay. Super say upper. Technically good. Amazing. Now, do you think that do you guys feel confident about knowing all of these things? That's the most important thing I feel. You guys feel that you're more confident that now you know what all of these concepts are and why you should, where you should use all of these things and where you shouldn't be using all of these things, right? That's more important. That's what I'm trying to achieve. Never thought this would be a part of SEO when I looked at it from outside. Okay, nice. Technically confident also. Even if you're not technically savvy, which a lot of people said they were not, now do you feel that is not that difficult? Technical SEO is not technical. That's a great way to put it, Ajay. Right? So it's not that technical also, right? You can actually, if you understand it the right way, you are in a much better position to understand it and like implement it. And yeah, Indrani, absolutely a lot. Like Indrani rightly said, I can guarantee you this. You're just like 40% through this training program and you are ahead of more than 99% of SEO professionals out there. Believe me when I say this, I'm not even exaggerating when I say this. With this knowledge alone and with the experience that you will have for the next 10 weeks, you will be ahead of 99% of the people. If you want to, you can just go and test it out in the market. Just ask any SEO guy out there. 9.9 of the 10 SEO guys will have absolutely no idea about all of these things that you guys have learned as part of this fix, right? So I can guarantee you that if you want to, you can go and like eventually check and like ask any people out there. So which is why there are many people who have been SEO professionals here. Would you guys agree with that? That you are ahead of most of the other SEO guys out there, and already, and it's just like 40% true, and there's so much more to like actually there. Awesome, great. Who is ready for the assignment? Let me know in the chat box. Awesome. What is the assignment? Slightly more difficult than the last assignment. You need to create 1,500 word article because this is going to be your pillar content. Now it can't be 1,499 words. It can't be 1,300 words. It can't be 300 words, 400 words, 500 words. It needs to be 1,500 word article. Actually speaking, if you are doing it in the real world, your pillar content needs to be a lot more in-depth than this. but I wanted to make sure that it's not too difficult on you guys also. So which is why I'm making sure that you are getting out of your comfort zone a little bit more and creating a 1,500 word article that will be your pillar content. And you need to obviously make sure it has been on page optimized and interlink all of the old posts that you have already created. Obviously, no plagiarism, minimum 4 images, and add at least 2 categories in your blog. You know how to do it now as part of a site structure, and add the categories and blog post to your menu. You guys know how to do that as well. Update your robots.txt and submit your sitemap on the search console. Install the AMP plugin and implement AMP, and then you are good to go. That's basically your assignment for now. And your assignment deadline is September 21st, 6 p.m. Cashback is 1,000 of always. And all the resources and links will be available on foundational.com/hs b5 resources. Right? So awesome. Pretty easy assignment, right? It's not that difficult, apart from the fact that you have to write a 1,500 worder for your blog post. Pretty easy, pretty straightforward, pretty simple to do. But most importantly, now you're equipped with a lot of important knowledge and information. This kind of foundation is going to like actually set up the right kind of, you are setting the right stage for you to have success for your SEO, right? Awesome. That's basically it as part of session number 4. And then we'll get on to the Q&A and see what's up. Topic will be 5 from the group for your pillar content. What I would recommend is try to go broader in terms of topics. If necessary, do your keyword research again, right? Do your keyword research again and go for a very broad topic, which will become like a pillar post, which you can then link out to all the specific posts that you have created so far, right? So your assignment is a 1,500 word article, add at least 2 categories in your blog, add the categories and blog post to your menu, and update your robots.txt, submit your sitemap on Search Console, install the AMP plugin, and implement AMP. Right? I'll be sending you the link for my What the Duck is SEO post. That's basically your pillar content, but that's an 8,000 word long blog post. You don't have to write an 8,000 word long blog post. 1,500 will absolutely be okay with it. Awesome. Let's do Q&A. Put in your questions in the Q&A box, and I'll go there and do it. In case of framework or defined set of rules, few things remain same. Is there any threshold for plagiarism? No, even with the framework or defined set of rules, even if things remain same, that's not what plagiarism is. Plagiarism is you not following, you copy pasting it and not necessarily following the framework. Okay, so if you copy pasting it straight off the bat, only then plagiarism will be detected. So we have obviously a buffer. So we make sure 10-15% is fine, because sometimes, you know, unintentionally you might have written something that might actually not be plagiarized, but you might have written it in a way that might be available somewhere else, but that's fine. But if you've just blatantly copy pasted it from another website which has actually written the same piece of content, that's what plagiarism is all about. Can I create a page about me for my blog to add it to the menu? Yes, you can go out there and do it. You will be actually learning how to do it in the next session as well. But if you want to do it right now, go ahead and do it. What are some sensitive areas of a website? Your backend dashboard, where you log into your dashboard, and your dashboard itself is the sensitive area of your website, right? So that basically you want to protect it as much as possible, which is why you're like making sure it's not like crawled and indexed at all in the first place. Why do we have to give specific instructions to each tools? What is the benefit of doing so? Should it not be the same with all crawlers, Google, SEMrush, or Ahrefs? I mean, it depends on different use cases. If it is going to be the same, then you can use the regex and just like keep it like that, which is what I have done, right? And if you want to make sure you want to give specific instructions to specific crawlers, so a lot of times people don't allow Ahrefs to crawl anything from their website. so that they are out of their index completely, so that nobody can like spy on them. You can like actually go out there and use Ahrefs to see what kind of backlinks you have received and all of those kind of things. If you want to make sure you block your competitors or any of these tools from actually getting your information, then you can do it. But I think it's definitely an overkill and completely unnecessary. So you don't have to do it. Can we optimize budget of non-WordPress website? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you just need to create a robots.txt manually and upload it to your server using an FTP client. Right. In this case, you're using a plugin to do it, but you can do the same thing for your non-WordPress website as well. Regex is wildcard. It basically means this is for all and any crawler that comes by. You can check your robots.txt file on any website. You'll find it on /robots.txt. You can like go and see like how it is actually happening. You can add your sitemap in robots.txt as well. It's unnecessary if you ask me, right? So it'll know where to find it. But some people do it, but I don't know. It's just like if you want to do it, you can do it. There's no harm in doing it, but it's not necessary. You basically create a text file, call it robots.txt, and upload it using an FTP client. Slightly more complicated, which is why I'm showing you guys how to do it on a WordPress thing. No, you cannot use Rank Math Pro for non-WordPress websites. It's a WordPress plugin, so it's definitely restricted to only WordPress. You basically have to do all of these things manually. If your client has a coded website, it's a hard-coded website, you have to do all of these things manually. But the approach is same. Everything what we've spoken about is still the same. If you're managing robots.txt in any pages, no, you're not adding it to any page. It's a general file for the entire website. I didn't understand the crawl budget part. Can you please explain again? Basically, your crawl budget is the amount of time and resources that Google devotes to crawling a site. It's called crawl budget, right? So say, for example, you had 100 URLs. Out of that, you had 60 important pages, 40 unimportant pages. Now, Google says that, hey, I'm going to spend only a minute for this particular website, but I can only crawl about 60 URLs in that particular minute. So what you're trying to do is basically you're trying to say that what Google is trying to say that your budget is 60 URLs. So you're trying to say that in those 60 URLs, you're trying to make sure all your important URLs are part and crawled and indexed and made sure your crawl budget is done. Does that make sense now, Harshita? Sitemap is like your table of contents for your website. Site architecture is basically how you structure your website in terms of your menus and links and all of those kind of things. What happens if people do not use rank math? You have to do all of these things manually, like I said, right? So, but I strongly recommend that you go out there and use rank math wherever possible. How do we check if a client's website is AMP or just responsive? If there is AMP, there will be a / AMP in the URL. It means that it's a AMP website. It's an AMP enabled website. Or if it's not there, it's just your regular responsive website. To check whether it's a responsive website or not, just see if the same website is being loaded on the mobile version and the desktop version as well. Like I said, all of these things for general websites, you have to do it manually, right? Robots.txt, you have to create manually. Sitemap, you have to create manually. AMP, it's much more difficult to do it manually, but you have to do it manually. Indrani, obviously this is beyond the scope of this particular course, but I think Jackson will be willing to take up a session on this particular thing, and we'll let you know once this training program is over. Okay. So once you're done with the 10 weeks, I'll tell Jackson to like, he actually is a very good person to like actually learn all of these things from, right? So once you're done with this particular thing, he'll teach you actually how to use Elementor and all of those things. He has his own training program and he's really good at doing that. So I think he's the right person for you guys to teach that. So he'll let you know once the entire, this batch is done, he'll let you know, then you guys can take it from there. Already in session 3, some interlink of photos. Can we add more? Yeah, go ahead and add more if you want to, if you can. Why post while creating website instead of pages? You can do pages also. Post is much more easier to do. It has a lot more functionality, and pages, the site architecture gets messed up. That's why we use posts and not pages. We do use pages also, but there are certain use cases for it. Can we use any of our old blog posts written for other blogs? Please don't do that. There is no way for us to find out whether you had actually written that blog post. Don't do that. It will be counted as plagiarism and it will be rejected. Basically, any page or post where you have actual content is an important page or post for you to get crawled. That's basically it. Yeah, Shanta, you have to install and implement AMP, but it will not actually be enabled because it won't be redirecting. Remember, I disabled redirect all mobile users to AMP. I disabled it. So since you're disabling it, you have the AMP on standby, but it is not actually been implemented. So it's fine. For assignment sake, I'm just asking you to like do it so that you know how to do it. So in the future, if the need arises, you know where to go and how to do it and everything. Yeah, you can come up with a completely new topic for the pillar content. You can check box this post with filler content. It makes things easier, but it's okay if you don't also. As the pillar content is over and above the last two articles, can we include the last two articles as part of the main article so that our linking also makes sense and meaningful? Don't make it part of the main article. Again, you'll have duplicate content issue within your website itself, but you can refer to the topics mentioned in those posts and then basically link on to the other posts. I hope that makes sense, Shivani. You can definitely use quotes, but don't like copy paste an entire post and say that this has been quoted from another person or something like that. Just don't do that. Yeah, you can take the next least group and start writing for 1500. But more importantly, if you can do another round of keyword research, please do so because you need to go a little broader for pillar content so that you're covering an entire topic rather than one specific keyword, right? Therefore, you can get that topical depth and link out to all the specific posts that you have created. We can use allow in robots.txt for crawling pages. Why sitemaps then? You can't. So robots.txt is more from a general perspective and not from a post specific, right? It's not post specific, which is why in the disallow also you use just slash tag slash, any URL that has the word this, please make sure you like do it, right? A sitemap is more like a table of contents. You are ensuring that you are actually making sure the posts are like actually crawled, right? So I would not recommend using the robots.txt with specific posts as allow and all of those things. And more importantly, if you have a very big website, it becomes extremely difficult to like go out there and update your robots.txt with multiple pages every single day, which is why we use sitemaps. You need to please explain way to write blog post on blog post or create a page and write a post. Don't create a page, write a post. For now, Devendra, just copy paste my robots.txt file and paste it. Okay, so all of these pages which are unnecessarily created, I have made sure it's part of this. So just take care of that. Not every session, but some of the sessions. What are some other cool robots.txt files like Nike? I don't know. I haven't like come across anything. So if I do, I'll let you know. Yes, I crawl my landing pages as well. Sitemap is pretty simple. It's like table of contents for your website. So you're just telling that, okay, these are the posts or content pages on my website. This is where you can find it. That's what a sitemap is. Literally self-explanatory, right? Site map. It's a map of your site. That's what a sitemap is. I will be sending you the link to my pillar content so that you'll have a much clearer idea of how a pillar content should be. Standard procedure to follow, don't use rank math. Like I said, you have to do it all manually. Yes, e-commerce sites also exactly same way. You'll understand what I mean by this in session number 7. Okay, just hold on till then. But this is how exactly you do it. You don't need to check your plagiarism. Like I said, as long as you're not copy pasting content from any website, you're good to go, right? As long as you're like writing it in your own words, you're good to go. You won't be like caught for plagiarism for that. So pillar content is a piece of content which is number one, very deep and very broad, right? Because it's very broad, you're able to like write something very deep. Instead of writing like what is technical SEO, what I've done is I've written what is SEO so that I can cover all the aspects of SEO in that particular post. And then obviously I can't go ahead and like write what is on page, what is technical, what is off page, and all of those things. So given a brief overview of all of these topics in that pillar content, and from those brief overviews, I'll be like, hey, if you want to read more about, say, for example, keyword research, go check out this particular post where I've gone in depth about keyword research. That is what pillar content is. Does that make sense to everyone? Just let me know. Don't worry too much about the quality of content and all. Like I said, this is your proving ground. This is your testing period, training grounds. Go out there and do it. It's fine. Yes, I'll be sending it in the mail, robots.txt. Yes, there can be more than one pillar content for a website. Absolutely. Come on, it's pretty clear. 1,500 words for this assignment. If you can't write 4,000 words, go for it. I won't be like complaining about it. So yeah. All right. That's the end of all the questions that we have. I hope you guys had a great time in this particular session. It's very informative. I personally like it a lot. And next session, session number 5, is going to be a lot more interesting. You'll be doing a lot many more things, and you'll be learning how to make your website super blazing fast. And like, you'll be using a bunch of other plugins also, and a lot of different things, a lot of tools. It's going to be very, very interesting. So make sure you finish your assignment on time. Don't wait till 5:55 p.m. And I'll see you guys next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Like always, until then, stay safe, stay healthy, have a great rest of the week, and see you guys next week. Good night. Bye bye.